Begin the broadcast with a couple of statements. First, from the Cusi faction of the PDP Laban. Its president, Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, in a resolution, has formally endorsed the presidential bid of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The group says Marcos' platform is most aligned with the development program of party chairman, President Rodrigo Duterte.
The other faction, though, of PDP Laban slammed that endorsement. In a statement, Senator Coco Pimentel said the Cusi camp's move is a manifestation of how they are total strangers to PDP Laban. He said that the party was established to oppose the Marcos dictatorship. He later called on the COMELEC to dismiss the petition of these code usurpers. Time for today's biggest headlines. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. While the Cusi wing of PDP Laban has officially endorsed Ferdinand Marcos Jr., party says it does not necessarily follow that the President Duterte, also supports his presidential bid.
The Pimentel faction, on the other hand, slammed that move, saying that PDP Laban was established to oppose the Marcos dictatorship. Mon Gualvez has the big story.
We are the Bongbong Marcos president.
Just less than 2 months before the May 9 elections, the ruling party, PDP Laban Cusi faction, has officially endorsed the presidential candidacy of Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
Sa mga pinagpilian po, ang pinakamalapit po na magtutuloy at magtutulak ng proyekto ng Pangulong Duterte ay si dating Senador Bongbong Marcos.
13 officials signed the resolution, including Senator Bongo, who withdrew his candidacy as PDP Laban's standard bearer. However, there was no signature next to the name of PDP Laban's Vice President for Visayas, Ben Everdone, who openly endorsed Marcos's closest rival, Vice President Leni Robredo. Also absent in the formal endorsement is John Castriciones, who's under Manila Mayor Isko Moreno's ticket. Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi said that he plans to talk to these members soon.
If they will abandon the party principles, if they abandon the party, that's their free choice. No, hindi naman natin pinipilit ang na mag-PDP sila.
The Marcos camp, meanwhile, welcomed endorsement of the Cusi faction in what they called a bandwagon of support for the BBM Sara Uni team. On the other hand, Senator Coco Pimentel, who chairs the other PDP Laban faction, decried the move. Pimentel said the Cusi group's endorsement of Marcos only shows they are strangers to the political party founded by his father. With this, Pimentel said it's time for COMELEC to dismiss their petition against the real party. Cusi, however, rejected this notion.
Hindi na natin papatulan yan. We are moving forward kasi pagka lagi yung the past ang aming inisip at we live by the past, ay walang mangyayari sa atin. Kung bulok tayo noon, hanggang ngayon, bulok pa rin tayo. Siyempre, kailangan naman umusad tayo.
Cusi also admitted that their endorsement does not mean that President Duterte is supporting Marcos Jr., adding that it must be clarified with the presidential spokesperson first. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, We're One News.
Here to talk more about PDP Laban Cusi faction's endorsement of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for president, we have on the line PDP Laban Cusi faction Secretary General Attorney Melvin Matibag. Attorney Matibag, welcome to The Big Story.
Yes, good evening, Robbie, and good evening, Gretchen, and to all your viewers, good evening.
Attorney Matibag, Secretary Cusi clarified that this does not necessarily mean that President Duterte himself is also endorsing Ferdinand Marcos Jr., at least not yet. But was the party chairman consulted on this move?
Well, in PDP Laban, we have a process. Our process is democratic and participatory. So, every decision that we're doing, we inform everyone of the decision. And whatever decisions arrived by the majority, that decision is somewhat recognized by the members. But this one is a position of the NEC. You have to remember, this is the National Executive Council, is composed of the officers of PDP Laban. So this is our decision. The decision was arrived because of our consultation with our local leaders and our chapters. So yun po yung naging dahilan kung bakit merong endorsement kay former Senator Bongbong Marcos.
And of course, you've seen the statement of Senator Coco Pimentel. He's calling this endorsement both ironic as well as dismaying, considering, of course, that PDP Laban was established by his father, among other people, to oppose the Marcos dictatorship. What do you say to Senator Pimentel?
Well, sinabi na po kanina ni Secretary Cusi na hindi napapatulan, so we'd rather leave it that way. Anyway, si Senator Coco Pimentel doesn't belong to the group na itong PDP Laban na kinikilala po ngayon.
On the other hand, Secretary Cusi also said, look, let's move forward. We're looking to the future. Does that mean that you leave the past behind? Again, referring to the past as to why PDP Laban was established to oppose the Marcoses, in particular the dictator and the findings of ill-gotten wealth and corruption and human rights violations. When Secretary Cusi says, let's move forward, does that mean that PDP Laban is not going to look at that anymore?
Well, lahat naman po kami, we recognize history at history po yan. And based on those statements, those are all mga personal grievances po yan. But if you will look at the real reason why PDP Laban is founded, yun po yung 5 principles ng PDP Laban. Theism, humanism, participatory democracy na tinatawag po na ganyan. Yun po yung mga nandiyan dyan na prinsipyo. Hindi naman po tinayo lang yan para kontrahin ang mga Marcoses noong panahon na yun, kundi para magkaroon po ng mabuting buhay ang mga tao. And looking at that, si President Duterte po, when he assumed the presidency, at sa PDP Laban din, mula noon pa man, 3 henerasyon, ay ginawa naman po niya kung ano po yung prinsipyo ng PDP Laban.
Okay, maraming salamat po. That was PDP Laban Cusi Wing Secretary General Attorney Melvin Matibag on the line. And it was not just Coco Pimentel. Action Democratico is also up in arms over the decision of PDP Laban's Cusi faction. It is also ramping up pressure on the BIR over unpaid taxes of the Marcoses. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to the story.
Presidential candidate Isko Moreno's camp is furious over PDP Laban's decision to endorse Bongbong Marcos for president. Only the faction led by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi made the endorsement. The other faction, led by Senator Coco Pimentel, slammed the move. Action Democratico campaign manager Lito Banayo says it goes against the very principles of the party.
PDP was founded by former Senator Aquilino Pimentel. Laban, on the other hand, was founded in 1978 by no less than then imprisoned Benigno Aquino Jr. to fight the Marcos dictatorship. So how a PDP Laban can now support the candidacy of their founding father's nemesis is beyond any principled choice.
Banayo, who was also Duterte's campaign manager in 2016, had some choice words for the president.
Paano kaya ninyo malulunok ang isang kandidato na sinabi ninyong nagdodroga o nagko-cocaine, spoiled brat, hindi pwedeng maging leader?
However, Duterte was not among the signatories of the resolution, and the palace made clear that it does not mean the president's endorsement, at least for now.
Hintayin na lang po natin si Pangulong Duterte kung ano ang kanyang personal na desisyon.
Action Democratico also continued to hit Marcos over his unpaid estate taxes. Banayo claimed that by his calculation, every Filipino who lost a job during the pandemic can get ayuda of 48,333 pesos out of that 203 billion pesos.
4.2 million people ang nawalan ng trabaho out of our workforce. Siguro naman dapat ang Department of Finance utusan na talaga ang BIR na singilin ang 203 billion na ito.
The letter hasn't been released to date, and it's unclear exactly how much estate tax the Marcos heirs are on the hook for. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
These are the other big stories tonight. As good as plunder. Former BIR Commissioner Kim Hinata says the Marcos family still needs to settle their estate taxes, and that not settling the multi-billion peso liability could be considered plunder. Meanwhile, his closest rival, Vice President Leni Robredo, is now being paired to Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte in what supporters have dubbed as the Rosa Tandem. But Robredo says she's sticking with Pangilinan. And TikTok-worthy VP candidate Walden Bello and senatorial aspirant Luke Espiritu take to TikTok to shoot a fun skit challenging Sara Duterte Carpio to a debate. These big stories after the break.
Still watching The Big Story, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. After a record-breaking sortie in Pasig City, the Leni Kiko tandem now visits Nueva Ecija for their campaign rally.
For live updates, we have over the phone mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro reporting from Nueva Ecija. Jacob, kamusta dyan?
Robbie, Gretchen, Nueva Ecija is the onion capital of the Philippines. But today it's overflowing with a different kind of onion called mga sibuyas for Leni. Supporters of Vice President Leni Robredo were in full force during the VP's campaign in the province. Their name, of course, is a play on the allegations by critics that thousands of attendees of Robredo's sorties were mere onions. Robredo barnstormed the province with running mate Senator Kiko Pangilinan and their senatorial bill. But in Cagayan de Oro City, a new tandem is taking shape. Lawmakers Lucas Rodriguez, Joey Salceda, and Mayor Ben Climaco officially launched the Rosa movement, endorsing Robredo's tandem with Uniteam's Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte as vice president. The group noted what they called the two women's exceptional COVID-19 response. But Robredo's camp said they will stick with Pangilinan until the very end, making sure that the senator will take his oath as VP on June 30. Her team says, however, that Robredo has always maintained an open door to working with anyone. Robredo did get some investments, including San Leonardo Town Mayor Ella Nagao and support from Congresswoman Azel Nagaño. Gretch, Robbie, getting a local endorsement would really help Robredo's chances in the province. As in 2016, Bongbong Marcos beat Robredo by more than 300,000 votes here. At the Grand Rally in Cabanatuan City, there is a crowd estimate of 35,000 attendees as of 6 p.m. all of them chanting repeatedly that there is no solid north. Later, the bands River Maya and Ben will perform. Reps, Robbie?
Maraming salamat, Jacob Lazaro. Meanwhile, former BIR Commissioner Kim Inares said the Marcos family should settle its unpaid 203 billion pesos worth of estate taxes as the BIR's assessment on it is final.
Henares adds that not settling the debt is as good as plunder. Camille Samonte with the report.
For the country's former tax chief, presidential aspirant Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and the rest of the Marcos heirs have to pay their multi-billion peso tax due. In an interview with 1PH Wagpo, former BIR Commissioner Kim Henares said the Marcoses have a net estate of 38 billion pesos. Following the tax code of 1977, that amount has a tax rate of 60%, meaning the Marcoses need to pay an estate tax of 23.3 billion pesos based on a Supreme Court decision in 1997. But that was ages ago. Henares told One News Agenda that amount has already ballooned, with former Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio pegging it at 203 billion pesos.
Kung yari hindi kayo nagbabayad, no? Meron hong surcharge of 5% per annum on the unpaid. No? Tapos yun ho, naging 20% ho kasi may mga amendment sa batas. Tapos may interest pa ho. No? So, alam nyo, yung interest ng hindi pagbabayad, 20% eh.
Henares also said that regardless of source, whether illegal or not, estate taxes have to be settled.
Hindi mo namin tinatanong kung galing ba yan sa nakaw, kidnapping, hold-upping. So ang ano lang namin is, ang ano lang ng BIR, wala hong tinatanong kung saan galing, so kung galing sa masama, galing sa mabuti.
In a taped interview with state-owned media PTV4, Marcos Jr. failed to answer directly the question about his family's unpaid estate taxes.
30 taon na namin sinasagot yan eh. Hindi naman nagbabago yung sagot namin. Hindi naman nagbabago yung opinion ng nagtatanong.
To this, former Commissioner Henares reiterated that the assessment of the Bureau is already final, and if the taxes are not collected, then it will be as good as plunder. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
Meanwhile, Vice Presidential candidate Walden Bello and Senatorial candidate Luke Espiritu poked fun at Sara Duterte's absence in the debates in this TikTok video.
If Duterte can't join the debate, Bello decided he would just have to bring the debate all the way to Davao City. Let's watch this.
Pupunta sa studio! Hindi pa rin gagawin ito! Hahabol mo si Sara! Wag! Pinagawa ka ng billboard, no? Ano yan? Ayun na! Billboard pinagawa ka ni Sara! Si Sara pinagawa niya! Oo! Ito pa rin tayo!
Yung pinag-uusapan natin na, di ba, kagabi, pag absent, kayo pag-uusapan.
Oo. Pero buti pa sila, di ba? Parang making use of social media to bring their point across. Talaga naman, maraming mga tao naghahanap sa lahat ng kandidato, gusto nilang marinig.
And that's true, we get the kick out of it. Well, time for another quick break. More of the big stories when we return.
still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Vote-rich Cavite gets a visit from the unit team, with local officials vowing a bigger crowd than Robredo's visit.
Before the campaign rally, however, Governor John Vic Remulla was seen handing out cash to some residents, which they claimed to be part of a cash prize for a talent showcase. For the latest updates, we have mobile journalist Julie Baiza reporting over the phone from Cavite. Julie, kumusta ang rally dyan sa Cavite?
Robbie, Gretchen, nandito pa tayo sa General Trias Sports Complex for thousands of supporters nga of the unity team tandem of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte at the Grand Rally. As of now, though, we have yet to get an official crowd count, but Governor John Vic Remulla has pledged that they will surpass the 47,000 attendees during the campaign rally of Vice President Leni Robredo here in Cavite. Prior to that, though, Remulla was in hot water this morning. The governor gave away cash during a pre-program activity at the Barangay San Juan Covered Court in Dasmariñas. But he clarified that this is not a violation of the Omnibus Election Code, as campaign for local position will only start on March 25. Furthermore, he said that giving away of cash happened prior to the official start of the unity rally. Marcos and Duterte, together with their Senate slate, held activities in various spots including San Juan and Paliparan 3 in Dasmariñas. When asked about growing costs for a Robredo-Sara tandem or ROSA 2022, Duterte says that they have yet to release a comprehensive statement on the matter. Marcos Jr., on the other hand, was mum about it. But when asked about the endorsement of PDP Laban, Marcos had this to say.
Of course, we are very, very grateful and are happy to receive this much awaited and much hoped for news. At malaking pasasalamat namin sa lahat ng mga ating kaibigan na kasapit sa PDP Laban sa kanilang ipinahayag na tiwala sa aming dalawa na Inday Sara at saka sa buong unit team. At ito ay magiging develop na itong bagong development na ito ay this will consolidate the forces of unity.
Robbie, Gretchen, the Grand Rally just ended around 15 minutes ago, but some of the supporters are still here jamming with the south borders, while some are still waiting to take photos with the candidates and local politicians. It can be recalled that in 2016, Marcos Jr. won here in Cavite by over 150,000 votes. Robbie, Gretchen.
Maraming salamat, Julie Baiza. In other big stories around the world, search and rescue efforts continue in the Guangxi region of China as authorities look for survivors in a fatal crash of a China Eastern Airlines jetliner. 123 passengers and 9 crew members were on board the Boeing 737 plane en route from Kunming to Guangzhou. The plane lost contact in the city of Wuzhou and made a sudden descent. This is China's worst air disaster in decades. The Ukrainian military has warned the public to brace for indiscriminate shelling from Russia. This as U.S. President Joe Biden said Russia is planning to use biological and chemical weapons. Critical infrastructure are expected to be targeted by Moscow as it has failed to conquer any Ukrainian city in 4 weeks of the invasion. And still in Ukraine, remember the 7-year-old Ukrainian girl who won hearts worldwide for singing Let It Go in a bomb shelter?
Amelia Anisovich lends her voice to a benefit concert in Poland where she sang Ukraine's national anthem. Let's have a listen.
Козацького роду.
I thought that was very heartwarming for a kid to be that patriotic at that age.
Yeah, and she really has become a symbol, among other things. I mean, for me personally, to learn that she got out of Ukraine, diba? And apparently she's in Poland along with millions of her compatriots. But, you know, as I said, as a symbol, it really brings the world together, not just for her, not just for Ukraine, but the whole, for people in general.
And hopefully, you know, images of the war won't stay with them for a long time. And these videos move leaders to make decisions for these kids' future. Well, that wraps up today's Big Story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.